Okay, so I've got this ash. It was killed by the ash borer, and we're gonna take it down. So it was killed by the emerald ash borer, you can say that 3 times fast. Only you can't tell by the lay of the land because we're on a hill. It's only very slightly leaning out towards the road, but it's leaning a little bit back towards the woods. And while I have enough room that I could drop this tree and it won't go in the road, it's going to take out the small tree that's down here at the other side of it. And I don't want to do that. So we're going to come in. I'm going to take off 2-3 branches that are low hanging and they're on the road side of the tree. And I'll take that weight off, and that'll allow me to drop it back uphill and towards the woods. So that's what we're going to work on today.
Down. Okay, well, there's not a whole lot of action for the next few minutes. If you want to jump right to the cutting, go to about the 11-minute 45-second mark, and we'll start cutting the tree. But I left this part in because I thought it was important to show that you just don't willy-nilly run out in the field, run out in your yard, and just cut a tree down. My original plan was to take off 3 limbs off the roadside of the tree and then drop it up the hill. But I took the first limb off, and then I got down and I'm looking at the tree a little closer, trying to look at the way that the weight is distributed, and it's just not going to fall up the hill. Now, a pro may be able to drop it up the hill. This tree is leaning a little bit to the road, and it's leaning a little bit towards the woods, 90 degrees to the road. And I'm just looking at the weight. I'm looking at the lean. I'm checking out how I think I can cut the trunk, how I can notch it, and which direction it's going to fall. So the more I study the tree, the more I come to the conclusion that it's just not going to go up the hill. It's just not going to work. I think I can keep it from going into the road. And here my daughter's coming up and we're talking about it. She's asking me some questions and I'm explaining what I'm thinking about. But we walk around the tree, just looking at it from all angles, just taking in the entire structure. And I'm explaining to her what I'm thinking about and what I see. You can see here this limb. The tree is just dry. It's just standing dead. I just take my time because a tree this size, it ended up being better than 30 inches at the base. And I cut it a couple feet up. It's a big tree. You make a mistake on that, and the size of that canopy, you can't run fast enough to get out of the way. Now she's asking me why the tree is dead, why it's standing there dead, why the limbs are falling off, and I brought her up close to the trunk and I'm showing her the holes. So this is an ash, and the emerald ash borer is a beetle that is infesting the ash trees in a wide range around this area. And you can't take firewood into campgrounds and things anymore because they're afraid that you're going to bring that beetle in to places where it isn't already. This is not the first tree on our property that is gone. There was another tree that was down closer to the road in the driveway just off camera, and it was gone when we bought the property. And eventually the limbs started falling, and then we had a storm and it blew most of the rest of it over. And by that time I had to get up into the tree and cut it. I'm about 10 feet up, and it was not a real safe situation. I didn't enjoy that. In order to get the rest of it down so it would be safe, it wouldn't fall on somebody. So I'm explaining to her here how the borer, that beetle, gets into the tree and eats away there at that sap layer. I can't think of the, I'll put it here on the screen, the little layer that right underneath the bark. It just cuts that off, and then they make a hole someplace else and it cuts it off, and they make a hole someplace else and it cuts it off, and that layer in the tree is like a ring of straws going up the tree. And so if you cut those straws off high and low and different places around the tree, you eventually cut off enough of the supply of nourishment for that tree that it just can't survive and it dies. So at this point, I'm determining that the direction that I think it's going to fall, that I'll be able to drop it, showing her that if we go just straight towards the woods, basically from this camera angle, we're going to go directly forward and drop it. So I'm going to prevent it from falling down the hill, and I'm going to just I'm going to notch it in such a way that it'll fall forward on its lean, and then it'll sit down in the notch, and the notch will then pull it a little bit uphill. And that way it's basically, there's a large tree just in the woods on the other side of this one, and that's where I ended up targeting, is just straight back from here towards the woods. Like I said, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about where it's going to fall, making sure that you have a clear path when it does go, that you can exit sideways from the tree. You don't want to run obviously under the tree when it's falling, and you don't want to run behind the tree 90 degrees to the direction that it's falling in case the trunk decides to kick. I always try to make sure I have an exit that is somewhere between 90 to 45 degrees away from the tree and back, opposite the direction that it's falling. At the moment, you can see that the ladder that I was using is laying in the yard, and turns out that that's the exact path that I determine that is my exit vector when the tree gets cut. So we'll move that in a little while once I get the notch made and determine that there's kind of an open spot in the canopy that that if the tree does start falling kind of up the hill or further up the hill than I'm planning, that it will give me an exit path. So she's standing kind of in the direction that I'm going to run. So I'm explaining where I'm going to cut, that, see, we're kind of clearing some stuff out of the way. She's going to make sure that she's clear of the tree, and we're going to start our cuts. Enjoy.
Woo! Well, I'm not a pro. That scares the tar out of me every time. But, Bucking says, watch your tops. And as the Stony Ridge farmer says, woo! That was a good one. Get your exercise, get your heart pounded. All right, well, it's on the ground. And then, sort of on the ground. Kind of up in the air. But I'm going to limit. I've got a friend who's going to come over and haul off the firewood, and I'm going to take the logs and we'll make some lumber. So stay tuned for that. If you like crazy videos, just lots of random stuff, DIY, woodworking, lumberjacking, then give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Woo! And we'll see you on the next one. Hi.